Hey guys, here in the last chapter of Ephesians chapter 6, going to start today. And today we're going to talk about a little more about family. Yesterday we talked about relationships, and today we're going to talk about kids and parents and slaves and masters and what those relationships look like and what they should look like. And I think it's going to be good. Let's go ahead and jump right in and read verses 1 through 9 of Ephesians chapter 6. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with a sincere heart as you would Christ, not by the way of eye service as people pleasers, but as servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, rendering service with a good will as to the Lord and not to man, knowing that whatever good anyone does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. Masters, do the same to them and stop your threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and that there is no partiality with him. Okay, so whenever we talk about a passage like this, right out the bat, we have to get out of the way this whole idea of slavery. In today's culture and in today's world, when we think of slavery, we immediately think of American slavery and the terrible atrocity that it was. But the problem with that is that during Paul's time when he wrote that, he could envision a world without slavery about as much as we could envision a world without electricity. Everything in our world runs off of electricity, and during Paul's time, that's kind of how slavery was. Had always been around. Is a big part of everything that society ran off of. Now, across cultures and across time, different slavery has looked differently. Sometimes it's been like a family member, part of a household, and sometimes it's been, people being treated terribly and treated as cattle almost. And so what Paul is saying here, he's not recommending or endorsing slavery. In fact, when he talks about the gospel, he's going to talk a lot about how one day we're all going to be free. We're all going to be set free of what separates us and makes us different. And so, but he knows that slavery is such a big part of his world. He doesn't go about trying to immediately emancipate slaves. He goes about saying, in the circumstances that we're in, here's how we should respond. And I think the best thing for us to do is to look at this as like, how would we respond to a bad master at our job, like a boss? How do we respond when we're at work? And so first, let's go back now and look. He says, children, obey your parents. And, he says this is the first law with the promise. And, obviously we hear this all the time. Kids, obey your parents. Kids, obey your parents. You've probably heard your parents at some point say, when you ask why, they say, because I said so. And there's something to listening to our parents, because they are wise. They've been on the world a lot longer than we have. And although technology changes, people don't. And they have dealt with people a lot longer than us, even myself now. And so it's wise to listen to our parents. Not only is it wise, but it's something that we're supposed to do. But here's something that's a little different in Paul's writing and in the gospel. He says in verse 4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Strangely, as opposed to a lot of other places, usually you see where it says kids, obey your parents, and slaves, obey your masters, and that's the end of the story. For Paul, he says it both ways. He says, children, obey your parents. Parents, don't be a bully. Don't pull your children to anger. And it's the same thing with slaves and masters. He says, slaves, obey your earthly masters with a sincere heart as you would Christ. Follow them wholeheartedly and work like you would work if it was the Lord. And then it says, masters, do the same to them. Stop your threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven. And so he basically sets it up and he says, treat your workers, treat your slaves, treat your children well if you're in a position of power. If you're not, work for them like you're working for the Lord. Show people your work ethic and have a good reputation, because your reputation represents Christ. And so this last part, I love it when he's talking to the slave owners or the masters, and he says, masters, do the same thing. Stop your threatening, because you have a master too. And he's almost hinting at, like, think about how you treat your servants, because that might just be how your Lord is going to treat you. And so today I just want to encourage you, as we're continuing to do our Stuck at Home, series here, our house arrest series. Whatever you're doing, whether you're stuck with your parents or you're working your job or whatever it is, do it like you're doing it for the Lord. Give it your all and show the world Christ in that way. But also, if you're stuck with your parents or your younger siblings, or maybe you're in a position of power somewhere, we've got to make sure we're representing Christ there. And the key is that representing Christ in everything that we do, and no matter what situation we are, no matter what side of the coin we're playing, we have to represent Christ. So really hoping to get together. I'm not editing that out. Really hoping to get back together soon. I miss you guys. I hope to see you soon. All right. Love you. Bye.